I'll never forget the day I walked into Pinnacle Enterprises with my mop and bucket. Just another morning in my navy blue uniform. Another day of silence and stares past me. My name's Clara Thompson, 48 years old, and for 15 years, I'd been the cleaning lady nobody saw. The executives in their sleek suits rushed past like I was part of the floor. Their shiny shoes clicked on the marble of that Chicago high-rise as if they owned the sky, and to them, I was nothing more than a background blur. Invisible. Until I wasn't. It started with a spilled coffee and a cruel laugh. Victor Lang, the CEO, towering, smug, and all teeth, let out a sound that echoed through the halls like a slap. That laugh, sharp and mocking, stuck with me. That was the day I decided they'd mocked me for the last time. Every night, I pushed my cart through those silent, empty offices, the city skyline glowing like a million promises outside the giant windows. Victor's corner office was always the worst. Paper scattered, coffee cups abandoned like a frat boy's den. He treated it like a kingdom. And he acted like a king. I'd hear him bark orders during the day, voices raised, temper short, firing people with a flick of his hand. "Cut the fat," he'd say. He'd laugh with his buddies while signing pink slips like autographs. One evening, I caught him shredding papers. Financial documents, the kind you're supposed to file, not destroy. I didn't say a word. I kept scrubbing. But I was watching. Always watching. And what would you do if you saw something shady like that? Then, one Tuesday, it got personal. I was mopping the marble in the lobby when Victor strutted in with his crew. Loud, arrogant, reeking of expensive cologne and entitlement. Someone had spilled coffee near the elevator. Probably one of them. Victor looked down, sneered, and pointed at me. "Clean it up, Grandma," he barked. His voice boomed. Everyone turned, and they laughed. All of them. I stood there, mop in hand, face burning. I wanted to yell, to tell him exactly where he could shove that coffee, but I swallowed it. Bit down on my pride so hard it left a scar. I kept my head down. That night, pushing my cart alone under the cold fluorescent lights, I made a silent promise to myself. He'd pay for that. And have you ever had to bite your tongue like that? They thought I was just a cleaning lady. But 15 years ago, my uncle quiet guy, big investor, passed away and left me something no one knew about. Shares in Pinnacle Enterprises. A lot of them. Enough to matter. Enough to tip the scales. I could have cashed out years ago, but I didn't. I kept mopping, kept watching Victor twist the company into his own personal playground while he gutted its heart. I watched him fire good people. Janitors, assistants, folks who worked harder in a week than he did all year, while he bought another yacht. Those shares were my secret. My ace. After that lobby humiliation, I called my old friend Tom. A lawyer with a memory like a steel trap and a heart like mine, tired of bullies. "Tom," I said, "it's time. What's the longest you've ever waited to settle a score?" We met at a greasy spoon diner on the other side of town, far from Pinnacle security cameras and sharp-eyed managers. Over soggy fries and lukewarm coffee, I told him everything. The layoffs, the shredding, the way Victor sneered at us like we were gum under his $1,000 shoes. Tom leaned in, eyes burning. "Clara, you're the majority shareholder," he said. "You've got the power to end this." I'd been careful, sneaky. Late at night, I'd taken photos of those shredded papers before they disappeared forever. Stuffed them into my cart under rags and cleaning spray. Real evidence. Numbers that didn't add up. Memos about strategic terminations. Emails about slashing benefits to increase margins. Tom grinned. We hit him at the shareholders meeting. Hard. I nodded, heart pounding like war drums. Ever caught someone doing something they thought they'd get away with? The shareholders meeting was a week away. Every night, I kept mopping like nothing was up, like I hadn't already lit the fuse. Victor strutted through the halls bragging about record profits, barking orders, slamming doors. I smiled as I dusted his office. My phone buzzed in my pocket with Tom's texts. Evidence is airtight. I'd slip into the copy room late at night, print emails I'd salvaged from the trash, messages where he harassed employees, fudged numbers, called us replaceable. My hands shook as I worked, but deep down, I felt alive again. One night, I overheard him on a call. "We squeeze the little people," he said with a chuckle. "That's the game." I smiled quietly to myself. He had no idea what was coming. "What's the sneakiest thing you've ever pulled off? Huh?" The night before the meeting, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my tiny apartment, lights off except for the glow of the desk lamp. The stack of documents Tom had assembled sat heavy on the table. Proof of every lie Victor ever told, every dollar he stole, every life he upended. My uniform hung over the chair, still smelling like bleach. I stared at it, thinking of Uncle Quai, thinking of every assistant Victor humiliated, every janitor he ignored. This wasn't just about me anymore. I whispered to myself, tomorrow, Victor's done. What keeps you up at night before a big move? The morning of the shareholders' meeting, I walked into Pinnacle just like always. Bucket rattling, mop handle clacking against the tile, head down. The boardroom buzzed with tension and money. Suits everywhere. Victor sat at the head of the table, smirking like a man who thought he couldn't lose. I waited in the hallway, one hand on my cart, the other gripping my phone, until Tom's text came through. Now. I pushed through the doors, still in my uniform, still invisible, or so they thought. Every head turned. Victor snorted. "What's she doing here?" he barked, waving me off like a gnat. "Get back to your mop." I took a deep breath, stepped forward, and met his eyes. "I'm not just the cleaning lady, Victor," I said, voice steady. "I own this company." Silence. Heavy, stunned silence. Ever seen someone's face drop like that? Victor let out a laugh, loud, fake. "Nice joke, sweetheart," he sneered. "Now get out." The board chuckled, nervous, uneasy. I didn't flinch. I pulled out the folder, slapped it on the table, and opened it. "Falsified reports, illegal layoffs, your own emails calling us disposable." Pages rustled like thunder, faces blanched. "I've got the shares," I said, "and I've got the votes." Right on cue, Tom stepped in, crisp in a gray suit, papers in hand. "She's telling the truth," he said, laying the documents out like cards in a royal flush. Victor's jaw tightened. "You can't," he stammered. "Oh," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "I can." I cut him off. "You're fired, Victor. Right now." There was a stunned silence, and then the boardroom erupted into shocked whispers. Victor stood frozen, face flushed a violent shade of red, fists clenched so tight I thought he might crack. He looked at me like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. "This isn't over," he hissed, voice low and venomous, before storming toward the door with the grace of a cornered animal. I didn't flinch. I watched him go with steady eyes and a calm heart. Then I turned to the board, who stared at me as though they were seeing me for the first time. "Things changed today," I said, voice firm. "No more layoffs for profit. No more treating people like trash." They nodded slowly, still stunned. But I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. A photo filled it. My cleaning crew, tired but proud, lined up outside the break room. I held it up for the board to see. "These folks deserve raises," I said, "starting now." There was a pause, then a few hesitant claps that grew louder until the whole room was applauding. For the first time in 15 years, I felt seen, really seen. Ever had a moment when you finally got to speak after a lifetime of being silenced? Victor didn't go quietly. As I walked out of the building that day, bucket rattling behind me one last time, I saw him in the parking lot, pacing like a man on the edge. He was yelling into his phone, wild and desperate. I just kept walking, the spring in my step louder than any words I could have said. By evening, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. News alerts flooded in. Pinnacle CEO ousted in shocking shareholder coup. But that was just the beginning. Regulators picked up the evidence I'd gathered. Within days, his accounts were frozen, his yacht seized, and his name dragged through the mud across every platform you can think of. Tweets called him a fraud, a bully, a dinosaur from an age where cruelty was mistaken for leadership. Karma didn't wait long this time. I sat on my couch, tea in hand, and smiled. Ever seen someone's empire collapse in real time? The next day at Pinnacle, the building felt different. I walked in wearing jeans and a sweater, no uniform this time, and the whispers began again. But they weren't whispers of pity or dismissal. These were different, respectful, grateful. The cleaning crew mobbed me in the break room, their faces lit up. "Clara, you really did it," one said, handing me a steaming cup of coffee. I laughed. It was the first time I'd laughed freely in that place in years. Later that morning, I sat in Victor's old office, my office now, signing paperwork for raises, new ethical policies, and improved working conditions. The view from the window was the same, but everything else had changed. For the first time, it felt like mine. I wasn't invisible anymore. What's it feel like to finally be seen after a lifetime of being overlooked? Word spread fast. By noon, my inbox was overflowing. Reporters wanted interviews. Former coworkers wrote thank you messages. But one email stopped me cold. It was from a janitor I'd worked with years ago, someone Victor had fired for asking for a sick day. His message was simple. "You gave us our dignity back." I teared up reading it. And that afternoon, I walked the halls and saw faces that once ignored me, now smiling, waving, stopping to chat. A young guy from accounting stepped out of his office as I passed. "You're a legend, Clara," he said, eyes shining. I shrugged and replied, "Just doing what's right." But inside I felt 10 feet tall. Ever had someone thank you out of the blue like that, and it hit you right in the soul? That night, I met Tom at the same diner where we'd first hatched the plan. He was already there, fries waiting, eyes twinkling. "You're trending, Clara," he said, showing me his phone. "Cleaning lady to CEO, it's everywhere." I laughed, shaking my head. I just wanted Victor gone. Tom leaned back and smiled. "You did more than that. You shook the whole damn company awake." We toasted with soda cans like a couple of kids, and outside, the lights of Chicago twinkled as they always had. But somehow, everything looked different. Or maybe I just did. What's the sweetest victory you've ever tasted? A week later, a local news station invited me for a live interview. I almost said no. Stage lights and cameras weren't exactly my comfort zone. But I knew I had to. Sitting under the glare, mic clipped to my collar, I told my story. The mop. The shares. Victor's fall. The host leaned in and asked, "Why did you wait so long?" I paused, then answered simply, "Because I needed proof, and the right moment." The lines lit up. People called in, some cheering, some crying. One woman said I'd inspired her to stand up to her abusive boss. Another said she finally asked for the raise she'd deserved for 5 years. I left the studio shaking, but proud. Ever inspired someone without even trying? Back at Pinnacle, I started with small changes that made a big difference. I installed a suggestion box in the break room. The first note read, "More coffee, please." I laughed and ordered another machine on the spot. Then I met with the cleaning crew, my people. I asked what they needed. Better hours, gloves that didn't rip. Done. One guy, Miguel, pulled me aside. "My daughter saw you on TV," he said, smiling wide. "She wants to be you someday." I blinked back tears and whispered, "Tell her to be better than me." It hit me then. This wasn't about Victor anymore. It never really was. What's one small change you'd make if you ran the place? Of course, Victor didn't vanish into the night. A month later, he popped up on some low-tier cable show, ranting and raging about how a sneaky janitor stole his company. I rolled my eyes until the host dropped a clip from security footage. Victor trashing his office after I fired him, screaming and throwing things like a toddler denied his toy. I laughed so hard I spilled my tea. The internet? Oh, they tore him apart. Memes exploded overnight. His meltdown went viral. His old buddies distanced themselves fast. The empire he built on arrogance and intimidation was now a joke. His name, a punchline. Karma still wasn't done with him. Ever seen someone dig their own grave deeper with every breath? Life at Pinnacle settled into a new rhythm, but I could still feel eyes on me, shadows that hadn't quite disappeared. One night, walking home, I noticed a man trailing me, too close, too quiet. Then my phone rang. It was Tom. "Clara," he said, voice low. "Victor's been asking around about you. Stay sharp." My stomach dropped. I'd won, but he wasn't letting go. The next day, I hired security for the staff, just in case. I wasn't scared, though. I'd faced Victor once. I'd do it again if I had to. My mop wasn't my weapon anymore. My voice was. Ever had someone try to drag you down after you finally rose? Victor's last desperate swing came fast. One morning, a lawyer strolled into Pinnacle with a lawsuit in hand. Victor claimed I'd manipulated the shareholders, that I'd stolen his company. I met the lawyer in the lobby, calm as ever. "Check the records," I said, handing him my uncle's notarized will. Every page was clean, every signature legal. Tom stood beside me, arms folded, smirking. The lawyer skimmed it, paled, stammered, and left. Hours later, the news broke. Victor Lang's case thrown out. Judge labels it frivolous. His legal fees stacked sky high. His last allies abandoned him. His reputation, already in tatters, was finished. That was the final nail. Ever watch someone's last plan blow up right in their face? A year later, Pinnacle is a different place. I'm still here, not in a uniform, but in a seat of leadership, running the company the right way. The layoffs have stopped, the workers have raises, and people walk the halls with their heads held high. That first suggestion box note. "More coffee." I framed it. It sits on my desk now, a simple reminder of who I'm here for. As for Victor, last I heard, he's selling condos in a nowhere town. Broke, forgotten. And me? I'm no hero. I'm just a cleaning lady who got fed up. But if I can do this, so can you. Hit that like button, subscribe, and check the playlist for more stories like mine. Where do you think karma's headed next?